I had nurtured feelings for two women who loved me deeply, Jian Wanqing, the wealthiest billionaire in Jincheng City, and Wen Shuzhou, a world-renowned genius scientist. They never forgot my morning kiss or my goodnight farewell. But then, they hurt me, repeatedly, for a new intern. I decided to leave this world without telling them. I asked the system to let me leave. The system replied, "Your request has been approved. You will depart in 15 days. Due to your excellent performance in completing the mission, you are allowed to take 2 items with you back to your original world." Without hesitation, I made my choice. I decided to take Jian Wanqing's wealth and Wen Shuzhou's intellect. The contract was signed. A countdown appeared on the screen. I opened my eyes and looked at the picture of the three of us on the wall, feeling a bit dazed. Jian Wanqing and Wen Shuzhou were childhood sweethearts. 20 years ago, due to an accident, the system brought me to this strange world as an orphan. The system required me to win the hearts of 2 women, making them fall in love with me simultaneously, so I could return to my old world. I chose the 2 girls from the orphanage with me. Initially, I only wanted to get close to them to complete the mission. But as 3 people in the same situation, we relied on each other, and I gradually developed real feelings for them, trying my best to treat them well. The orphanage abused children, giving us only 1 meal a day. I saved my portion for them, surviving on water. Together, we got into a top university. The 3 of us worked day and night during summer break, but the money we earned was only enough for 2 tuitions. I voluntarily dropped out so they could continue their studies. When we were in a car accident, I didn't hesitate to shield them, suffering severe injuries to save their lives. That day, their feelings for me peaked. The system informed me that they had completely fallen in love with me. The mission was complete, and I even received a handsome bonus. I could have chosen to leave, but I didn't. At that time, Jian Wanqing and Wen Shuzhou were at the lowest points in their lives. One had a failed business, and the other was anxious about her lack of academic progress. During countless sleepless nights, they would hold me for comfort, repeating, "I only have you. Don't leave me." After so many years together, seeing them in such pain, I couldn't imagine what would happen if I left. So, I postponed my departure and used all my accumulated points to exchange for a business opportunity for Jian Wanqing and brilliant intellect for Wen Shuzhou. In just 1 year, their lives changed completely. Jian Wanqing quickly became the world's richest billionaire, topping the Forbes list. Wen Shuzhou won a Nobel Prize, becoming an admired genius scientist. The childhood dreams of my 2 sweethearts had come true. It should have been a perfect ending, but the story didn't stop there. A month ago, a new graduate intern named Song Jingyan came to my studio. Because he was young and from a difficult background, I often took him under my wing. Gradually, he got to know Jian Wanqing and Wen Shuzhou. I don't know when, but they started showing him special favor. At first, it was small things, like ordering a whole table of seafood, forgetting my severe allergy, or abandoning me on my birthday to take care of Song Jingyan, who had a cold. Even a gift meant for me was given to him just because he said he liked it. These small incidents became more frequent. I endured them in silence until tonight. At my birthday party, Song Jingyan intentionally pulled me under a chandelier, whispering ambiguous things. I didn't understand his intentions, and was about to leave when he wouldn't let me go. Just then, the chandelier fell. Jian Wanqing and Wen Shuzhou both chose to save Song Jingyan, leaving me to be hit. Covered in blood, I was severely injured. Not only did they not show any concern, but they also blamed me. Why did you bring Song Jingyan to such a dangerous place? Did you intentionally want to harm him? I endured the pain and explained what happened, but they frowned and defended him. Are you saying Jingyan intentionally set this up to harm you? Jingyan is so gentle, how could he do something so malicious? Why are you slandering him? Seeing the 2 women who had weathered so many storms with me now standing against me, I couldn't help but laugh, a bitter laugh that made my eyes burn. I didn't argue. I went home, covered in blood, treated my wounds, and summoned the system. I want to leave this world. And I'm taking back everything I gave them. I wanted to know, when they lost their wealth, status, fame, and intellect, would the pure and gentle Song Jingyan still give them a second glance? I looked down at the dog that had wandered in. Jian Wanqing and Wen Shuzhou had given it to me 2 years ago. Now that I was about to leave, and their attention was all on Song Jingyan, I had to find a new home for the dog to be at peace. The next day, I contacted a pet care organization and arranged to bring the dog in for a new owner to adopt. After finishing the paperwork and returning in the evening, I heard noise from the living room before I even entered. Jian Wanqing and Wen Shuzhou, who had been gone for days, were talking and making Song Jingyan laugh endlessly. When I pushed the door open, all sound stopped. The 3 of them looked at me, smiles still on their faces. After a moment of silence, Jian Wanqing acted as if nothing had happened. It's so late. Where have you been? Wen Shuzhou noticed something was off. Where's the dog? I don't see it. It has a cold. I took it to the vet, I said, making up an excuse. I was about to go upstairs when Song Jingyan called out with an innocent look, Haochan, my place hasn't been safe recently. Wanking and Shuijo were worried about me, so they told me to move in here for a while. I wasn't surprised they'd bring him here without asking me. Before I could speak, Song Jingnian boasted, "Oh, and I mentioned I like sunny bedrooms, so Wanking and Shuijo insisted I take the master bedroom. They had someone move your things to the guest room." I glanced over without a word. Yun Wanking immediately stood in front of Song Jingnian. "Jingnian is only staying for a few days. Be a little more generous. Besides, we haven't even blamed you for what you did wrong last night." When Shuijo chimed in, it was my and Wanking's decision to let him move in. We also had the room changed. "If you're angry, blame is. Don't bully Jingnian." Song Jingnian then played the protector. No, it's not like that. Haochan, don't blame them. If you're really angry, just blame me. You can hit me or scold me, I can take it. Watching the three of them vie to take the blame was just laughable to me. My face was emotionless, my voice laced with sarcasm. "I haven't said anything. Why do you assume I'm going to be angry?" My words stunned all three of them. "You agree?" Hyun Winking and Wen Shuja looked at me in disbelief. "Why wouldn't he agree?" I replied calmly. "This is your house, after all. You can make the decisions. You don't need my opinion." Hearing my indifferent tone, they became flustered. "What do you mean, our house? Haochan, have you forgotten? When we bought it, we made it clear this villa was a gift for you. The deed is in your name. Of course, we value your opinion." I couldn't help but laugh. "You only remember to ask for my opinion after you've already moved everything." I didn't want to say more, just nodding indifferently. "Fine, I agree. He can move in. Is that okay?" Jun Wenking and Wen Shujo glanced at each other, confused. I no longer cared. I turned back to the guest room, looking at my things piled messily on the sofa without blinking, stepping over them as if they weren't there. If I didn't even want these two women anymore, what was a bedroom? After showering, I went to sleep. The next morning, I woke up on time for work, but Jun Wenking and Wen Shuijo were waiting for me at the door. They surrounded me, each holding a carefully wrapped gift. "Haochan, I know you've been unhappy these past few days. We don't mean anything by it. It's just that we see a shadow of you in Jingnian. Every time we see him, we remember the hardships you went through. He's as pure and kind as you were, so we just paid a little extra attention to him." I laughed. "Hyun Wenking, if you weren't the world's richest billionaire, and Wen Shuijo, if you weren't a famous professor, if we were still three orphans like before, do you think he would cling to you like he does now?" They heard the sarcasm in my words, and their faces turned cold. "Jingnian is not the type to favor the rich, and despise the poor, Haochan. How can you make such baseless assumptions?" "That's right. He comes from a humble background himself. How could he look down on us?" Hearing their firm defense, I didn't want to waste any more words. I casually placed their gifts in the hallway cabinet and headed for the garage. "You're right. I'm being petty." I opened the car door and had just buckled my seatbelt when the passenger door was suddenly pulled open. Song Jingnian sat down, smiling. "Haochan, why are you leaving so fast?" I almost couldn't catch up. "Are you going to work alone today? Wanking and Shujo are driving you." They wanted to, but I refused. I don't want to be too dependent on them. "Can you give me a ride?" I ignored him and was about to start the car, but he shamelessly got in. "Oh, I heard they gave you gifts today, didn't they? They treat you so well. I wish I had two childhood sweethearts who loved me like that." I acted as if I didn't hear him, staring straight ahead. My dismissive attitude clearly angered him, but then he seemed to have an idea and held his phone in front of my face. "By the way, Haochan, have you seen my Moments post today?" I glanced at the screen and saw a pile of gift boxes and a boastful caption, "The two beautiful sisters gave me so many gifts, I can't even use them all. I just don't like this necklace and watch. They're so ugly, I'd rather put them on a dog." The gifts Jian Wenking and Wen Shuijo gave me today were a necklace and a watch. So, they had been putting on a show since this morning, trying to tell me that the gifts they gave me were things he'd rejected. I finally understood Song Jingnian's petty scheme. In the past, I might have been very sad, wondering why our years of affection meant less than a man who had appeared just a few months ago. But now, I no longer cared. "Don't distract me while I'm driving," I said flatly. At the studio, I went to my office and called Zai. "Zai, you've been with me for 3 years, right?" I took a folder from my bag and handed it to her. "I'm planning to give you full management of the studio." Zai's eyes widened in shock, as if she were dreaming. "Why? Haochan, did something happen?" I looked down, saying quietly, "I'm going to a place far away and won't be coming back. I want to leave the studio in the hands of someone I trust." Hearing this, Zai didn't dare ask more and just nodded seriously. "Haochan, when are you leaving?" "The design competition finals are in a few days. Are you participating?" "We're all waiting for you to win the gold medal." Hearing the word finals, I glanced at the glass cabinet full of trophies. Because I couldn't afford tuition, I never had the chance to go to college. For 4 years, I worked part-time to support the three of us while secretly auditing design courses, teaching myself. Over the years, with unique works and a good reputation, I made a name for myself in the industry and opened my own studio. I had won all sorts of awards, big and small, and only needed this one to complete the set. To be honest, I wouldn't be content to give up here. I knew better than anyone how hard the journey had been. So, under the expectant gazes of the young people, I agreed to participate. I would win the most prestigious award in the design industry before I left. As a final word to myself, the day of the finals arrived quickly. I got to the venue early and saw 3 familiar figures. Jian Wenqing and Wen Shuzhou were hovering around Song Jingyan, asking after him with concern. When he saw me, Song Jingyan smiled and approached. Wenqing wanted to broaden my horizons, so she invested in this competition to get me a spot in the finals. Don't worry, Haochen, with my skill level, I'm no threat to you. You're the top contender for the gold medal. Hearing this, Wen Shuzhou gently tapped his head, her voice incredibly soft. The competition hasn't even started. Why are you so down on yourself? Just do your best. I believe you'll achieve great results. Encouraged by her, Song Jingyan finally relaxed. With the encouragement and support of a genius scientist, luck will surely be on my side. Dunwitting Brudos. I encouraged you too. Why no thanks for me? I can't play favorites. Watching the three of them chat so naturally, I suddenly remembered a few years ago. It was my first time in a design competition. I had no degree and no reputation, and I was terrified by the crowd. At that time, to help me relax, Jian Wenqing and Wen Shuzhou put aside their important work and stayed by my side from beginning to end. One messaged me while the other fed me and cheered me on, more nervous than I was. It seemed nothing was the same anymore. I gave a faint smile and followed the crowd into the venue. After 5 hours, the competition ended. I packed my things and took a taxi home alone. 3 days later, the results were announced. Zizi called immediately. Haochen, the first prize of the competition is your work. I had been working almost sleeplessly for the finals, pouring my heart into it. It was a relief to hear my efforts paid off. But just as I was about to breathe a sigh of relief, Zizi stammered. But there's a problem with the work now. The organizers found 2 identical pieces and suspect plagiarism. One is signed by you, the other by Song Jingyan. Because you have so many fans, this is causing a huge stir online. I frowned, completely unexpected that Song Jingyan would dare to do such a thing. The innocent will prove themselves innocent. I've been preparing this piece for a long time. I have evidence to prove my innocence. But Zizi panicked, her voice trembling. It's too late, public opinion is out of control. Haochen, you'll know when you check the hot search. Hearing her increasingly weak voice, I felt a sense of unease. After hanging up, I immediately opened Weibo and saw the top trending topic, Jian Haochen plagiarizes. I clicked on it in disbelief. The first thing I saw was a video of Song Jingyan sobbing. I'm really not the one who plagiarized in this design competition. Although I'm just an intern, I would never do something like that. I know everyone likes Haochen and wants to clear his name, but please, believe me this one time. My submission was entirely my original creation. I even shared my ideas with 2 friends during the creative process. They can vouch for me. The entire video had no concrete evidence, but it had over 1 million shares and comments, simply because the 2 people who cherished him were Jian Wenqing, a global billionaire, and Wen Shuzhou, a Nobel laureate. I scrolled through the comments. You say you didn't plagiarize, so are you saying Jian Haochen did? Come on, kid, he's won so many awards. Why would he plagiarize an unknown like you? And 2 friends. Do you know who they are? One's a billionaire, the other's a Nobel laureate. If they're your friends, I'll cut my head off and let you kick it like a soccer ball. Most of the comments were mockery and insults. But amidst the wave of criticism, 2 new Weibo posts suddenly shot to the top. One was from Jian Wenqing, who shared the video and commented, I can testify that Song Jingyan did not plagiarize. The other was from Wen Shuzhou, who pinned the video to the top of her page with the caption, I saw the draft of this work before the competition. Song Jingyan truly did not plagiarize. A few seconds later, the entire page froze. I saw the hot search with my name on it now had a reported tag next to it. They had even come forward to vouch for him. If he didn't plagiarize, then in the public's eye, that was equivalent to having solid proof that I did. In an instant, my private messages, Weibo DMs, and notifications exploded. At first, people were asking if I really plagiarized. Then the comments became uglier, turning into increasingly vicious insults. Seeing these messages, I couldn't remain calm. With trembling hands, I posted a new Weibo, I did not plagiarize. In seconds, the post was flooded with tens of thousands of comments. You say you didn't plagiarize. You think Professor Wen is giving false testimony. She won a Nobel Prize. How could someone so serious lie? With billions in assets, and their status and reputation, why would they need to frame a designer with only a few 100,000 fans? You're a famous designer, yet you plagiarize a newcomer. Have you no shame? He used to believe in you. What a slap in the face. Hyun-Hachen, get out of the design world. Their fans and countless outsiders swarmed in, crushing the few explanations from my remaining fans. With the support of just Jian Wanking and Wen Shujiao, the situation was completely reversed in an instant. The official information hadn't even been released, but the entire internet had already decided on the plagiarism case. Everyone unanimously affirmed that I was the plagiarist, and praised Song Jingnian for his young talent. Under public pressure, the design competition organizers issued a statement confirming that the gold medal winner was Song Jingnian. My name was completely absent from the list. As soon as the announcement was made, my phone was bombarded with calls. The studio sent a message saying that all the partners we had signed with were demanding to terminate their contracts. Dozens of projects faced enormous compensation claims, and the studio was on the brink of collapse. This sudden disaster left my mind blank. I never imagined things would develop this way. I tossed aside my unusable phone, ran downstairs, and used the landline to call Wen Shujiao, wanting to ask her why. The phone rang for a long time before she answered. Faced with my questioning, Wen Shujiao only said one thing: Jingnian is pure and kind. He couldn't do something like plagiarism. I have to prove it for him. Then she hung up. Hearing the dial tone, my chest felt heavy, and I could barely breathe. My hand clenched and unclenched. I dialed another number. Before I could speak, Shen Wanking's voice came through. Rush. I know what you're calling about. To me, it doesn't matter who plagiarized. Jingnian is just starting out, and he loves being a designer. He has a long road ahead. I don't want his future to be ruined, so I have to stand by him. Her words made my chest feel like it would explode. So you don't actually know the truth, do you? If you don't know the truth, why would you clear his name? His future can't be ruined, but what about mine? Do you have any idea what I paid to get to where I am today? I didn't go to college. I had no backing. I stayed up every night trying to achieve what I have. And with just a few words from you, it's all gone. Didn't you once say you'd always support my dreams? Is this how you support me? The other end of the line was silent for a long, long time. Then, Jian Wenking's voice came, tired and helpless. Hakan, you still have me in Ichuyo. I hung up and collapsed onto the sofa. Watching the sky darken outside the window, the sun had set. My life was completely over. In the following days, industry organizations successively announced the termination of their cooperation with my studio. Overnight, the top studio in the industry, which had been thriving and attracting investment, disappeared without a trace. Years of hard work turned to dust. I didn't want to accept this reality, but I had to. I ran around, pulling many strings, and finally resolved the project issues. To avoid implicating my employees, I announced the dissolution of the studio and used my savings to compensate everyone. When the last person left, I stood alone in the empty room, looking around. I came here with nothing, and I was leaving with nothing. I laughed at myself, my eyes filled with disappointment, and left the studio step by step. In the center of the square, the large screen broadcasted the latest news day and night. I looked up and saw the live broadcast of the design competition award ceremony. Wen Shujiao and Jian Wanking stood in the middle of the stage, beautiful and elegant. They smiled at Song Jingnian, who was holding the trophy and flowers, accepting the congratulations of thousands. With two such important award presenters, the live viewership in the top left corner had reached millions. Under the watch of countless people, Song Jingnian's eyes turned red again as he gave his acceptance speech. As a newcomer, receiving this award is a great honor. I thought I wouldn't be able to get my work back. Thank you, Seo-jun and Professor Wen. Thank you, everyone. Seeing his phony act made me so nauseous I almost threw up. I hailed a cab to the riverbank and stood against the wind for a long time before finally calming down. At midnight, I turned on my phone, which had been off for days. The call history was a sea of red, dozens of missed calls from Jian Wanking and Wen Shujiao. There were hundreds of unread messages in WhatsApp. I was about to delete everything when I heard a familiar voice from behind me. Haochen, why didn't you answer your phone? It was Wen Shujiao. Dun Wanting followed, both looking anxious. They ran up and grabbed my hands. It's so late, why aren't you home? Are you still angry at us? Do you know we've been looking for you for 3 hours? Our hearts were beating so fast they almost stopped. Seeing their concerned eyes, I stepped back, creating distance between us. My expression was cold. On such a happy day, shouldn't you be with Song Jingnian, celebrating? My resistance made them pause. Dun Wanting sighed, lowering her voice. Haochen, don't be angry. We just see you in Jingnian, that's why we're good to him. If we had been able to protect you back then, you wouldn't have had to suffer so much. Making it up to Jingnian is like making it up to you. That's all. Don't overthink it. Seeing them still trying to explain, a sarcastic smile formed on my lips. I'm standing right in front of you, yet you want to make it up to Song Jingnian. What a joke. Pity whomever you want, but don't drag me into it. Song Jingnian, and I are not the same kind of people. My rejection of Song Jingnian made them lose their patience. Their faces darkened, and they spoke in unison to defend him. Hakan, if you have any dissatisfaction, take it out on Yiz. Can you not make things difficult for him? He's just an intern. I was sick of hearing these words. I didn't want to get entangled with them anymore, so I raised my hand to hail a taxi and gave the name of a hotel. But they wouldn't let go, following me into the car. Yan Wenking insisted the driver change the destination, while Wen Shujo whispered in my ear, Haochen, we know you're unhappy, so we've already told Jingyan to move out. Come home with us, okay? If you don't come home with us today, whatever building you go to, we'll buy it. You know we can. I had no strength left to argue with them. I closed my bloodshot eyes and looked at the final 7-day countdown on the system panel. They said they would follow me wherever I went. Unfortunately, the final place I was going was a place Jian Wenking and Wen Chuizhou would never find. In the end, the taxi still took us back to the villa on the mountainside. I didn't say a word and went straight to my room, ignoring them. Perhaps out of guilt, Jian Wenking and Wen Chuizhou tacitly cancelled all their work to take care of me at home. They cooked 3 meals a day and sent countless gifts, expensive designer watches, trying every way to make me happy. They treated me as they did in the old days, before Song Jingnian appeared. But faced with their attempts to please me, I showed no reaction, quietly counting down the days. Today, I woke up to find the living room full of people. Seeing me awake, Wen Shuizhou gently approached. Daoshan, you've been cooped up at home and unhappy. We've organized a party for you to relax. We've arranged for stylists and makeup artists. You don't need to worry about anything, just dress handsomely and attend. I didn't want to go to any party. I just wanted to leave as soon as possible. But as I was about to refuse, Jian Wenking stood up to persuade me. Unable to stand their pestering, I let them do as they please. By the time I left the villa, it was evening. I walked towards the garage, and just a few steps from the car, I overheard 2 drivers talking. I heard that Xiao Jian and Professor Wen are going to propose tonight. Mr. Jian is such a good father. I wonder if he'll agree. My footsteps stopped. Propose. Jian Wenking and Wen Shudo were going to propose to me today. I felt no joy, only absurdity. When I arrived at the party venue and saw the hall filled with roses and heard the whispers from all around, the male lead has arrived, realized they were serious. Just as I was about to flee, a romantic piano melody filled the quiet hall. Jian Wenking, in a purple wool dress, and Wen Shuizhou, in a white evening gown, appeared under the spotlight. Each held a bucket of flowers and a diamond ring box, walking towards me together. Just as they were about to kneel, the sound of hurried footsteps came from the door. They both turned and saw Song Jingnian, drenched, holding a cake box. The excitement in his eyes turned to shock and sadness when he saw what was in their hands. Jian Wenking was surprised. Jingnian, why are you here? Why are you so wet? Hearing her voice, Song Jingnian's eyes immediately reddened. A few days ago, I heard you and Shuizhou say you wanted to eat the cake from near the orphanage, so I went to buy it. It suddenly started pouring, and I didn't have an umbrella. I shielded the cake the whole way just so you could have it. I didn't expect. I'm sorry, I've disturbed you. His voice grew weaker, turning into a sob as he pretended to be pushed over by me. This unexpected scene stunned everyone present. Jian Wenking reacted first, her expression changing. She immediately thrust the flowers and ring box into my hands and turned to chase after him. Seeing her go, Wen Shuizhou quickly handed everything to me, leaving with a single sentence, Haochen, wait for me, we'll be right back. I didn't want to wait anymore. I didn't want to wait at all. I walked out of the hotel. It was drizzling outside, and the street lights were coming on, illuminating 3 figures in a struggle by the road. As I stepped out, I heard Song Jingnian pretending to have been pushed by me. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt your proposal. I know you both like Haochen, but I really couldn't control myself. Wenking, Shuizhou, I'm the one who ruined your proposal. I couldn't take it anymore. I shouted, Song Jingnian. Then, under the astonished gazes of the 3, I threw all 4 items in my hands at him. You wanted these, didn't you? They're all yours. I'm granting your wish. Now stop crying, okay? You're ruining the city's scenery. After saying that, I turned to leave without looking at their reactions. Jian Wenking and Wen Shuizhou's faces immediately darkened, and they stepped forward to block my path. Haochen, what do you mean by that? Why are you saying you're granting the 3 of us our wish? Stop making a scene, Haochen. We have no feelings for Jingnian. We sincerely wanted to propose to you today. Before they could finish, a shout from Song Jingnian cut them off. All 4 of us turned to see an electric scooter with failed brakes hurtling towards us. In an instant, Jian Wenking and Wen Shuizhou both lunged forward to protect Song Jingnian, pulling him to safety, leaving me alone in the increasingly heavy rain to be hit and thrown 10 meters away. When I woke up, I found myself in the hospital. Only Song Jingnian was by my side. Seeing me awake, he immediately came closer. Haochen, are you okay? Last night, I didn't expect Wanking and Shuizhou to protect me. Pain spread across my face. I had no strength to listen to his sarcastic remarks. As I was about to call a nurse for a dressing change, my eyes caught two-piece talismans around his neck. Looking closer, I realized they were identical to the ones I had prayed for Jian Wanking and Wen Shuizhou at the Sizhou Temple 10 years ago. I suddenly grabbed Song Jingnian's hand. What are those around your neck? Seeing my question, Song Jingnian smugly held them up. These. Wanking and Shuizhou gave them to me a few days ago. He was halfway through his sentence when Jian Wanking and Wen Shuizhou pushed the door open. Seeing me clutching the talismans, their expressions changed slightly, and they hurried to explain. Hakan, don't misunderstand. It's not what you think. I was tired of their half-hearted excuses. In a life or death moment, a person's instinct is to protect what is most important to them. They abandoned me simply because I was no longer the most important person in their hearts. Why bother with such roundabout lies to deceive others and themselves? He smiled bitterly and let go of the talismans, my voice finally filled with exhaustion. Give them to whomever you want. I'm leaving soon anyway. During my hospital stay, Jian Wanking and Wen Shuizhou took turns watching over me. 3 meals a day were delivered to my bedside on time, nutritious and complete. At night, someone stayed awake by my bed, afraid I would hit my wounds in my sleep. If my eyes lingered on an item in a magazine for a few seconds, it would be delivered to the hospital the next day. My wounds gradually healed. On the day of my discharge, they were absent again. Jian Wanking's secretary and Wen Shuizhou's assistant bowed respectfully, each giving an impeccable excuse for their boss. They said nothing and followed them out of the hospital and into the car. As soon as I got in, I saw Song Jingnian's latest moments post, doing charity work at the orphanage, accidentally got hit in the foot by a falling object. I no longer cared where Jian Wanking and Wen Shuizhou had gone. I closed my eyes. The system panel showed I had only 3 days left in this world. During the final 3 days of the countdown, I decided to erase all traces of myself from this world. I went to several schools and scraped my writing off desks and walls. Then I returned to the orphanage, dug up the wishes we had buried under a tree, and tore them to shreds. I went to the temple and removed the lock we had hung years ago, throwing it in the trash. I revisited every place that held our footprints and personally destroyed our most beautiful memories, leaving no trace behind. 2 days before the countdown, I packed up everything in the house. All the gifts Jian Wanking and Wen Shuizhou had given me were packed and donated to the orphanage. I didn't hesitate to throw the photos of the 3 of us into the fire. The joy of splashing in the fish pond, the anticipation of waiting for sunrise on the mountain top, the excitement of receiving our first paycheck and having a fancy dinner together, every vivid, smiling face was consumed by the flames in an instant. The memories that once moved me to tears vanished just like that. The villa that held our past gradually became empty. I looked around, then stepped onto the balcony and gazed at the spring-filled garden below. I couldn't help but remember Jian Wanking and Wen Shuizhou bustling in the garden. I used to love climbing roses, so they planted the entire yard with them for me. I remember the beautiful sunshine that day, the 3 of us standing among the blooming roses. He loved to talk, I loved to laugh, the wind rustled the treetops, and birds sang. Now, the roses were in full bloom, but their meaning was gone. The flowers were the same, but the people were different. I smiled faintly, lit the fan in my hand, and threw it down. The branches filled with romance and love burned to ashes in the flames. On the last day of the countdown, I called a cleaning company to take away everything related to me. After they left, I deleted all my accounts and factory reset my phone. As the phone was restarting, the doorbell rang. I opened it to find Song Jingnian, smiling. Hakan, what have you been busy with these days? I haven't seen you around. Wanking and Shuizhou haven't been home because of me. You must be jealous, angry, and resentful, right? Perhaps because I was about to leave, faced with his provocation, I only felt calm. Why should I be jealous or angry? Seeing my lack of reaction, Song Jingnian thought I was pretending and became even more smug. Of course it's because the world's richest billionaire and the genius scientist now revolve around me. Billionaire and genius. I looked at the countdown clock, 15 minutes left. I shook my head. Soon, they won't be. What won't be? Song Jingnian didn't understand and was about to ask for clarification, but I ignored him and turned to go upstairs. Seeing my expression, an inexplicable fire rose in his heart. He was about to follow when he heard footsteps from outside. His eyes darted around as a plan formed. He stepped forward, grabbed my hand, and pretended I had pushed him. Just as he fell, the villa door was pushed open. Song Jingnian's forehead hit the corner of a table, and blood trickled out. Jian Wanking and Wen Shuizhou immediately rushed over. We already explained, we have no feelings for Jingnian. Why did you hurt him again and again? Hearing their joint accusation, my expression remained calm, my voice flat. He faked the fall himself. It has nothing to do with me. Instead of questioning me, why don't you ask him why he's so troublesome? Seeing I wouldn't admit it, their faces turned grim. Jingmian has been at the orphanage these past few days taking care of the children, doing everything himself. He's so kind, yet you say he's acting. Why would he need to act and injure himself? What does he gain from it? What does he gain? A said coldly. He gains COGM's money and Professor Wen's fame. Both of you revolve around him. Tianwenqing, Wen Shuzhou, ask yourselves, if you had nothing, would he still cling to you every day? Hearing this, they immediately denied it, their voices firm. Of course he would. Jingmian is not that kind of person. Standing by their side, Song Jingmian immediately played along, groaning in pain. They no longer had the heart to argue with me, and turned to help him out. I was left alone, watching their receding backs, smiling mockingly to myself. Tianwenqing, Wen Shuzhou, you'll soon find out what kind of person he is. After they had completely disappeared, my eyes fell on the sofa, where Tianwenqing's and Wen Shuzhou's phones lay. In their anxiety over Song Jingmian, they had even left their phones behind. I picked them up, entered the passwords, and deleted all my photos from their albums. From now on, I would no longer exist in their world. After doing all this, I sat on the sofa, closed my eyes, and called the system. System, take me home. Immediately. A cold, mechanical voice echoed in the living room. Yes, master. Departing from the world. The system is now retrieving the 2 promised items for you. Congratulations, Tianwenqing's wealth has been successfully retrieved. Congratulations, Wen Shuzhou's intellect has been successfully retrieved. A second later, the person in the room vanished. The sports car outside the villa also disappeared. The pause button was pressed, then restarted. Wen Shuzhou, holding Song Jingmian, and Tianwenqing, driving the car, suddenly lost their seats and tumbled onto the road. As the pain shot through their nerves, they slowly regained consciousness. Looking at the unobstructed scenery and the suddenly vanished sports car, the 3 of them were stunned, seeing the disbelief in each other's eyes. Weren't they on their way to the hospital? Where was the car? Why did it suddenly disappear? What kind of supernatural event was this? This bizarre scene terrified Song Jingmian, making him forget his act. He propped himself up. What on earth happened? This question voiced the thoughts of all 3 and snapped Tianwenqing and Wen Shuzhou out of their shock. Their eyes met, then fell on Song Jingmian. The confusion in their eyes was gradually replaced by suspicion. Jingmian, aren't you injured? Hearing Wen Shuzhou's surprised tone, Song Jingmian realized his slip-up. He quickly feigned dizziness, stumbled, and fell to the ground, weakly saying, it hurts so much. Shuzhou, let's hurry to the hospital. Tianwenqing reacted first, getting up and heading back to the villa to get another car. The missing car was a small matter that could be investigated later. The urgent thing was to get to the hospital. Jingmian's health was more important. But when she reached the villa, and tried to use her fingerprint to unlock the door, the lock seemed to be broken, continuously beeping. After a dozen tries, it still wouldn't open. Tianwenqing lost her patience and called the others over. Wen Shuzhou tried her fingerprint, but it still wouldn't open. After many failed attempts, they triggered the community's security, and a dozen guards rushed over, treating them like thieves and taking them to the security station. On the way, the 3 of them argued, trying to explain that they were the owners of the villa. But after checking the system, the security guards found that the villa was listed as unoccupied. This result shocked Tianwenqing and Wen Shuzhou into silence. They checked again and again, even arguing with the security team, insisting the system was faulty. The guards, unwilling to reason with them, handed them over to the police as burglary suspects. Even facing the police, Tianwenqing was supremely confident. I am Tianwenqing, the CEO of $100 billion corporation. That villa is really in my name. You've arrested the wrong person. The police officers looked at each other, frowning. $100 billion corporation. What company is that? Never heard of it. Have you? Some kind of scam group, maybe. Faced with their suspicious gazes, Tianwenqing lost her patience completely. I am the richest billionaire in the world, don't you know? Her words made every officer in the station turn to look, but with mocking eyes, as if looking at a lunatic. The world's richest person isn't that Manhwa guy. Is this woman delusional? I think this might be a new type of scam. We should investigate thoroughly. Hearing the whispers, all 3 were stunned. Tianwenqing was still wondering when Manhwa had become the richest person. The events of the past half hour were too much for Wen Shuzhou to accept. She took a deep breath and stepped forward. I am Wen Shuzhou, the winner of the 124th Nobel Prize in Mathematics. You can surely believe my words, right? Hearing this, the officer on duty spat water all over his computer screen. The room filled with laughter. Nobel Prize in Mathematics. Lady, are you still dreaming? You're the second person to say the Nobel has a prize for mathematics today, haha. Until they left the police station, Tianwenqing and Wen Shuzhou still didn't understand what had happened in the past few hours. Why had they fallen from celebrated stars to mud-caked orphans who had just graduated from college? Neither could accept this reality. They collapsed to the ground, their eyes vacant, drenched in a cold sweat. Song Jingnian was also still in shock, but he was resilient. Faced with this inexplicable reality, he still held a sliver of hope. He stopped pretending to be sick, sat down, and held their hands. Wanking, Shuzhou, those police officers probably don't go online, so they don't know who you are. Contact your assistants and secretaries to sort this out. Hearing this, the two finally regained some hope. But when they reached into their pockets, they realized they didn't have their phones. Song Jingnian lent them his. When Shuzhou called her assistant first, the number, which was supposed to be available 24/7, was now a dead line. Dun Wanking quickly took the phone and called her secretary. The call connected, but the person on the other end was annoyed. What CO? Everyone can be a CO these days. Do you think you're the female lead in a romance novel? You're crazy. Beat. The line went dead. After being challenged and mocked by security, police, and their own staff, Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou felt dizzy. They placed their last hope on me. After dialing the number, the three of them stared at the screen, nervously swallowing. After a dozen seconds of silence, the call connected, but it wasn't a familiar male voice. It was a cold, mechanical voice. Hello, this is System 1340. How may I assist you? System. What system? Isn't this Houchin's number? The three of them looked at each other, thinking they had dialed the wrong number. They hung up and called again, but no matter how many times they tried, it was the same mechanical voice. The continuous shocks had numbed Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou. Only Song Jingnian hadn't given up. He hailed a cab to take them back to his rental apartment first. On the way, he tried to rebuild their confidence. It's okay. Wanking, Shuzhou, something must have gone wrong somewhere. Get some rest, and everything will be back to normal tomorrow. One sleep after another, one day after another, this topsy-turvy world remained unchanged. The richest person was still Manhwa, the Nobel Prize still had no mathematics category, and Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou were still two unemployed nobodies. The business tycoons who used to call Dun Wanking a sister wouldn't even see her now, let alone contact her. The mathematical formulas that had once brought Wen Shuzhou supreme glory were now just a jumble of English letters, and numbers she couldn't comprehend. And what was even more unacceptable to them was my disappearance. Besides them and Song Jingnian, no one else remembered me, the designer who was once famous, and then ruined overnight. It was as if I had never existed in this world, vanishing like smoke, leaving no trace. Compared to falling from grace, my departure was a much heavier, harder blow for Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou to accept. They went mad, searching everywhere for any trace of me, the orphanage where we grew up together, the university campus where we spent our youth, the mountaintop and temple we had visited, the villa we lived in for 2 years. They visited every place related to me, to our past. In the end, all they found were empty wishing bottles, scraped walls and desks, a missing lock, and a scorched garden. After repeated disappointments, Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou felt lost in a fog. Was I, and our entire past, just a long, unreal dream as others said? The person who found their dilapidated state even more unacceptable than they did was Song Jingnian. At first, he harbored some illusion that they could make a comeback. He placed stock market data and unsolved math problems before them, trying to get them to recreate their glory. But reality slapped him hard. There was no glory in their eyes, only endless confusion. He hoped it was all an illusion, that they could reach the pinnacle of their lives again, that the things he had snatched from me still had value. The truth was, what he saw was real. They had no way to regain their past wealth and fame. What he had taken from me were just 2 poor girls. These 2 poor girls ate his food, drank his water, yet their hearts longed for me, who had vanished without a trace. This was something Song Jingnian truly could not accept. When patience runs out, there's no need to endure anymore. After confirming that what's done is done, on a cold night, Song Jingnian kicked Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou out of his house. Before slamming the door, he vented all his accumulated frustration. I must have had 8 lifetimes of bad luck to meet you two. You're useless, you've spent all my savings. Since you miss Dun Houchin so much, get out and find him. See if he wants 2 useless people like you. Only then did Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou finally understand that everything I had said was true. Song Jingnian was not what they imagined. He only coveted their wealth and fame. And when they became poor again, unable to bring him any benefit, he tore off his mask of hypocrisy, revealing his true face. But they couldn't blame anyone. If they had to blame someone, it was themselves for misjudging him. The 2 women, now homeless, wandered the streets. Their hair was a tangled mess, their faces dirty, their clothes faded, wearing cheap slippers. They exuded an air of gloom, a far cry from their spirited, unmatched selves a month ago. After wandering for who knows how long, they took a half-empty bottle of liquor from a barbecue stall and sat by the river, sighing at the moon. At this moment, Dun Wanking and Wen Shuzhou thought of the person they hadn't heard from in so long. Where did Houchin go? How could a living person just disappear? We miss him so much. We miss Houchin smiling and telling us that every storm will pass. We miss Hyakin shielding us without hesitation. We miss the days Hyakin spent with us. The pain of separation, the itch of longing, the sudden realization it all hung over them like a dark cloud. The two dejected women could only resort to alcohol to numb their nerves. But when they were drunk, my face appeared in the clouds, in the moon, becoming clearer and clearer, making them both panic. In this world, they could no longer distinguish what was real and what was fake. Wen Shujiao, her eyes blurry, took out the phone she had found in the empty villa and dialed that familiar number again. When the call connected, it was the same mechanical voice they were tired of hearing. Perhaps because she was drunk, she didn't hang up but rambled. Haoshan, where did you go? How could you be so cruel as to abandon us? Didn't you say you would be by our side no matter what? Why did you break your promise? The system processed this string of questions, successfully extracting keywords and analyzing the situation. It detected an encoding error that occurred during the system restart which had not been fixed in time. The memories of the target characters, Yan Wanking, Wen Shujiao and Song Jingnian, had not been erased. Danger warning. Analysis shows this world has too many errors. Another restart will risk system collapse. The proposed solution is to transfer the 3 target characters to another world. System has received the directive, and will activate the space-time travel function, transferring the 3 target characters from the Xinza space to the Ruza space. Countdown 10, 9, 7. Wen Shujiao, drunk, didn't understand these strange words but retained her sensitivity to numbers and started counting down with them. 6, 5, 4. Yan Wanking, also dazed, heard her and joined in the countdown. 3, 2, 1. As the last sound faded, 2 white lights flashed simultaneously on the deserted riverbank and in the dark rental room. The 3 people involved were completely unaware. When Song Jingnian opened his eyes, it was noon. He had slept for 12 hours and woke up still groggy. He finally forced himself out of bed and opened TikTok while brushing his teeth. A news report was playing. The 10 Billion Group has made a shocking announcement. The copyright for the famous wuxia master Yin Yong's works will enter the gaming industry to develop a new title. At first, Song Jingnian didn't pay much attention, but when the cold water hit his mouth, his sluggish brain finally woke up. What group? The 10 Billion Group. Wasn't that Jian Wanking's once glorious business empire that had suddenly vanished? Was he dreaming? Song Jingnian slapped himself hard a few times. Without wiping the water from his hands, he scrolled back to the previous news item. Only after clearly hearing the 4 words the 10 Billion Group and seeing the familiar, shining building logo on the screen did he finally confirm this was not a dream. More accurately, perhaps the previous days had been a strange dream. The 10 Billion Group still existed. So, Yan Wanking was still the wealthy female CEO, and Wen Shujiao was still the revered genius scientist. And he wouldn't have to live a hard life working multiple part-time jobs every day. At this thought, Song Jingnian became ecstatic, spinning in place a few times. He excitedly dropped his toothbrush, opened his contacts, and called Jian Wanking. After a long ring, a deep, sleepy voice came through. Who is it? The voice was extremely annoyed, but hearing it now, Song Jingnian found it as beautiful as music. He cleared his throat, adopting the gentle tone he had practiced a month ago. Wanking, it's me. Are you in Shujiao at home? I want to come visit. Should I bring some pastries? The other end of the line was silent for so long that Song Jingnian thought she had fallen asleep again. Then a muffled, unclear sentence came through. At the riverbank. At the riverbank. Exercising by the river so early in the morning. As expected of a billionaire. That persistence and self-discipline, Song Jingnian inwardly marveled. He quickly took out his most expensive suit, styled his hair, and gritted his teeth to spend his last few hundred yuan on 2 portions of western pastries, then happily rushed to the riverbank. But after walking a large loop along the path, he didn't see anyone. Just as he was about to give up, he suddenly saw 2 people sleeping soundly on the gravel beach by the river. From a distance, they looked very much like Jian Wanking and Wen Shujiao. But why this poor, pathetic version? A month after returning to my original world, I had gradually grown accustomed to my dual identity as the world's richest billionaire and a Nobel laureate in economics. I lived in a villa on Shanjian Mountain, which had the most beautiful scenery in Beijing. I ate breakfast prepared by a 5-star Michelin chef, had bodyguards escorting me everywhere, and received 90-degree bows from everyone I met. This sudden change in life made me sigh. If I could go back to that world, I would never do something so foolish again. So stupid. So incredibly stupid. Fortunately, I now have an extremely high IQ of 180 and endless good fortune. I will no longer be blinded by trivial love. Why would I spend the 20,000 points I accumulated over 20 years of effort on those 2 white wolves? How wonderful it would be to use those points to enjoy the life of a true billionaire and genius. I reflected on the past while holding a financial magazine, studying the recent economic situation. After finishing my coffee, my assistant approached with my coat and reported the day's schedule. Mr. Jian, There is a video conference at 1000 m and an interview at 100 m. Although the schedule was packed, it was so well organized and reasonable that I didn't feel tired. Before the live interview began, it seemed my phone number had been leaked, as I received many strange calls. When my assistant reported this, I paid it no mind and told her to get a new number. Taking a final look in the mirror, I saw my makeup and attire were perfect. With a polite smile, I walked into the interview room, which was being watched by millions of fans. Hello everyone, I am Jun Yichin, CEO of the Bechi Group. Seeing the person who suddenly appeared on the large LED screen, Jian Wanning, Wen Shuizhou, and Song Jingnian, who were arguing by the river, all froze. The expressions on their three faces were identical, utter shock, lips slightly parted in fear, and eyes wide. That unforgettable face, that impressive voice, and the three clear words Jian Yichin told them this was not a dream. The CEO of the Bechi Group, whom they had just researched, who shared my name, was me. What on earth had happened? Why had he replaced Jian Wanning as the head of the Bechi Group? The three of them rubbed their eyes, wondering if what they were seeing was a hallucination. But no matter how much they rubbed, even until their eyes were about to bleed, the person on the screen did not change. They then realized that everything they had experienced for over a month was real. Faced with this scientifically inexplicable reality, Jian Wanting, Wen Shuizhou, and Song Jingnian all felt a storm of conflicting emotions. For Song Jingnian, the bright future he held in his hands had turned to dust in an instant. He was pessimistic, desperate, and furious, filled with jealousy and hatred for his rival and enemy. As for Jian Wanning and Wen Shuizhou, everything they had lost had now returned, not into the hands of a stranger, but into mine, the person who grew up with them, willing to sacrifice his life for them. They were both bewildered and relieved, with a touch of emotion for reclaiming what was lost. They firmly believed that no matter what happened, I would always be on their side. Without hesitation, they hailed a taxi and rushed to the television station. Watching their departing figures, Song Jingnian guessed their intentions. Unwilling to accept that the fruits of his 2 months of hard work had vanished, he gritted his teeth, hailed another taxi, and gave chase. When the two taxis stopped outside the television station building, my interview had just concluded. Surrounded by bodyguards, I walked out slowly amidst the enthusiastic cheers of fans. From a distance, I saw three figures running frantically towards the main gate. They looked familiar. As they got closer, I recognized the three familiar faces, and a strange emotion flickered in my eyes behind my sunglasses. Hadn't I returned to my own dimension? Why were Jian Wanting, Wen Shuizhou, and Song Jingnian here? Did they also exist in this space? What rotten luck. Thinking this, I regretted not checking the lunar calendar this morning. I lost the mood to sign autographs and take pictures with fans and hurriedly got into the car. Just as the car door closed, a frantic Jian Wanting reached it, holding the door tightly. Her face was flushed as she panted, calling my name, Hao Chen. Where have you been all these days? Wen Shuizhou arrived shortly after and also played the emotional card. Hao Chen, why did you leave without a word? Do you know how worried we were? Hearing their familiar way of speaking, I confirmed one thing, these two were likely not just look-likes, but the actual people. I cursed the unreliable system in my head, but my face remained a placid, smiling mask. I spoke calmly, not to them, but to the bodyguards. Gentlemen, please remove the unrelated individuals from the scene. On their way here, Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou had imagined 1,000 reunion scenarios, but never this one. 1,000 thoughts raced through their minds, but they both agreed to wedge their hands in the car window. Facing the pulling of the bodyguards, they refused to let go, continuously introducing themselves to awaken my memory. Hao Chen, it's me, Wanting. Don't you remember me? We grew up together. Hao Chen, look at me, it's Shuizhou. In front of everyone, the crowd of onlookers grew excited, taking out their phones to take pictures. I didn't expect these bodyguards to be so useless, unable to handle two women. My face turned cold. I was now a public figure. Every word and action could become a trending topic and spark widespread discussion. Having experienced the online world in my past life, I deeply understood the importance of public opinion. Seeing the situation about to spiral out of control, I immediately decided to get out from the other side of the car and had my secretary get Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou, who were still clinging to the car, inside. The secretary, ever vigilant, understood my intentions. She opened the back door for me to get into another car while contacting people to handle the scene. A few minutes later, the blocked road was cleared, and a dozen sports cars sped away towards the Bechi Group headquarters. Before even getting out of the car, I saw news of the incident online. The media, adept at sensationalizing, used the few minutes of video and my name to create all sorts of headlines that climbed the trending charts. I frowned slightly. I had died in a car accident before my transmigration, so to return to this world, I could only adapt to my current identity. The system had modified the code for me, allowing me to bring with me a fortune of hundreds of billions and a Nobel Prize, not out of thin air. In this world, everyone subconsciously accepted my existence, believing that I and everything I possessed were a matter of course. However, the appearance of Song Jingnian, Shujiao, and Wanting was clearly a potential threat to my current self. After all, they knew my past. Today, they had attracted so much media attention that I could no longer handle them lightly. I had to find a way to resolve these three potential dangers that the unreliable system had created for my smooth, ailing life. I called the secretary who had stayed behind, and told her to quietly bring Song Jingnian along as well. Returning to the familiar office, Wanting felt like she was in a dream. She looked out at the familiar river view, then at the completely different interior of the Bachi group, a complex emotion in her eyes. Beside her, Shujiao was less contemplative, her gaze fixed on the door, waiting for me to enter. But after 4 to 5 hours, as night fell, they still hadn't seen me. They grew anxious, asking the assistant at the door several times, only to receive the cold reply, "Mr. Jiang is busy. Please wait patiently." After a few hours of managing public opinion, the afternoon's incident gradually subsided. But because of my prominent status, while there were no waves on the surface, a strong undercurrent remained. From a few words spoken by Shujiao and Wanting in the video, netizens began to investigate my background. They discovered that the three of us came from the same orphanage, attended the same primary, middle, and high schools. Later, Shujiao and Wanting went to university while I dropped out, working while studying economics courses. It seemed we lost contact after that. Then, using the money I had saved over several years of hard work, I founded a small company. In just 2 short years, with my excellent vision and extraordinary intelligence, I established the Bachi Group. For my great contributions to the international economic market, I was awarded the 12th Nobel Prize in Economics, shaking the nation and the world. Meeting again today, our statuses were worlds apart. Netizens commented wildly, discussing why we had parted ways and what our future would hold. There was no shortage of outlandish speculation, with many guessing that a love triangle was the cause of our dispute. When I scrolled to this comment, my palms broke out in a cold sweat. I grew anxious again. In less than half a day, they had dug up so much. If I didn't control this, and the three of them revealed my entire past, wouldn't I be demonized? The thought of being slandered made me uncomfortable. But things had come to this point. No matter how reluctant I was, I had to meet them. To know oneself and know one's enemy is to win 100 battles. Just as Shujiao and Wanting's patience was wearing thin, the assistant finally received the notice to bring them to the conference room. The moment they pushed open the door, my cold atmosphere and powerful aura made them very uncomfortable. In their memory, I was always the little boy who followed them, the fledgling bird hiding under their splendid raincoat. Faced with someone so cold and completely different from their impression, both their hearts pounded. But years of affection eventually triumphed over their instinctual fear. Wanting looked at that familiar face and called out my nickname, Hao Chen. Before she could finish, the assistant beside her looked up at them and sternly reminded, "Ladies, this is the headquarters of the Bachi Group. The person before you is the CEO of the Bachi Group. Whether for personal or professional reasons, you should address him as Mr. Jiang." Hearing this, Shujiao and Wanting instinctively looked at me, expecting me to refute the assistant. But I had no reaction, not even a glance. They sat solemnly in the chairman's seat, exuding an inviolable dignity, nothing like the person in their memories. Under the pressure of the room's atmosphere and the numerous bodyguards outside, Shujiao and Wanting finally relented. They clearly and properly enunciated the distant title, Mr. Jiang. After the assistant closed the door, I turned to look at Shujiao and Wanting, my eyes holding a coldness and seriousness they couldn't decipher. "Ladies, we are not acquainted. May I ask why you suddenly rushed the scene? What were your intentions? Assassination, kidnapping, or inciting public opinion?" Hearing this barrage of questions, they were stunned. Assassination. Inciting public opinion. What did any of this have to do with anything? Seeing the undisguised suspicion on my face, Shujiao realized something was wrong and stepped forward to explain, "Mr. Jian, we meant no harm. You've been missing for so long, we were just worried about you." At this, I frowned slightly and glanced at my assistant. The assistant understood and brought out prepared materials, placing them before them. "Ladies, for the past month, Mr. Jian has been in Beijing handling acquisitions and business trials. He has appeared in public almost every day. As for being missing, please be truthful, or we will have to contact the police." Looking at the stack of newspapers filled with information about me, and then at the publication dates, Shujiao and Wanting felt it was utterly absurd. Clearly, for the past month, both the Bachi Group and I had completely disappeared. Why were there so many scheduled events? Had they encountered something supernatural, like time travel? They looked at each other, seeing the disbelief in each other's eyes. Finally, Shujiao reacted first. She glanced at the assistant, and spoke tactfully, "There are some things we would like to confirm with Mr. Jiang. Would it be convenient for you to step out?" After half a day of pointless conversation, we finally got to the point. My heart was in my throat, but I maintained the demeanor of someone in a high position. I glanced at them before waving my hand to dismiss the assistant. Once she was gone, Wanting clenched her fists and began, Do you remember us? Of course I wouldn't admit to such a thing. I shook my head decisively. Seeing my action, shock flashed in Shuizhou and Wanting's eyes. They could no longer sit still and took turns recounting the past, trying to awaken my memory. We met at the orphanage. Back then, you even fought with other kids for us. You scored very high on the college entrance exam, but you gave up your studies for us. Later, you became a designer and opened your own studio. Hearing them recount these past events, my heart remained unmoved. I considered everything that happened in that world as just a dream I had, with no lingering attachments. No matter how profound or touching their retelling of the past was, I remained unshaken, as if I had just watched a cheap romance movie. While speaking, Shuizhou and Wanting carefully watched my expression, trying to find any trace of connection to the past. But even after talking until their mouths were dry, they saw no change on my face. In the end, I remained unmoved, while Shuizhou and Wanting grew more desperate with each memory. Under my increasingly impatient gaze, their last hope was extinguished. It turned out they had really experienced a transdimensional incident, a case of mistaken identity. The Jian Yichin in this dimension truly had no memory of anything they had experienced together. You must have mistaken me for someone else. I have no memory of any connection with you. Please do not bother me again. After speaking, I mercilessly called the assistant to escort them out. Before my words even finished, the assistant had brought in bodyguards to see them out. As the two reluctantly looked back while leaving, the assistant took out a prepared recruitment brochure and handed it to them. Ladies, if you wish to work at the Betchi group, you can go through the recruitment and application process. Please do not use such extreme methods to harass Mr. Jiang. Hearing this and looking at the thick recruitment brochure in their hands, their hearts stirred. Whether I remembered them or not, they couldn't let me go, nor did they want to leave just like that. Even if there was only a sliver of hope to be by my side again, they would try their best. After successfully sending them away, the assistant returned to the office to report the progress. I nodded as I listened, beginning to plan my next move. Contact the television station to collaborate and turn the spring recruitment into a televised job seeking program broadcast across the entire network. The pace must be fast, and the promotion must be thorough. The assistant quickly jotted down the key points, and immediately informed the relevant personnel to form a project team. Seeing everything fall into place, I felt a little relieved and set off for the hotel. The car stopped in front of the hotel. The secretary, already waiting outside, came forward to report on the situation. Mr. Jian, as you instructed, I have signed a contract with Mr. Song, hiring him as your image designer. He doesn't know you are his boss yet, and is currently waiting for you in the living room. Although everything went smoothly, the thought of dealing with Song Jingnian still gave me a headache. I rubbed my temples, adjusted my expression, and slowly walked into the room. As soon as the door opened, Song Jingnian, who was smiling obsequiously, froze upon seeing me. Since Shuizhou and Wanting had fallen from grace, he had lost his source of income and had been sending out resumes everywhere. But for some reason, all his applications were like stones sinking into the sea, without any response. He didn't have much money left and was worried every day. This afternoon, he had intended to follow Shuizhou and Wanting to watch the spectacle, but the scene was too crowded, and he was always kept on the periphery. When the crowd dispersed, someone suddenly contacted him, asking if he was looking for a job. Thinking it was a response to a previous application, he rushed over. Hearing the generous salary and benefits, Song Jingnian signed without hesitation, not even bothering to read the contract details carefully. He had thought he was a 1,000-mile horse that no one appreciated, finally meeting his bolo. Who knew that his bolo was the love rival he had tried so hard to frame before? Thinking of his recent actions, then looking at the contract on the table, and the person before him, cold sweat broke out on Song Jingnian's forehead. He was so nervous he couldn't speak. I casually sat down on the sofa, looking at him intently with a smile. Long time no see. I didn't expect that after all this, you'd become my employee. Song Jingnian's face turned pale, and he stammered, What? What do you mean? I picked up the thick contract from the table, very satisfied with my secretary's efficiency. What do I mean? Of course, I'm congratulating you on becoming my image designer. I heard you won a gold medal in a design competition. I'm looking forward to your work. My words were clearly said with a smile, but they made Song Jingnian tremble. He seemed to foresee the scenes of being tormented later. He immediately wanted to tear up the contract. I'm not doing it, find someone else. As expected of a new graduate, so nay. I smiled lightly and threw the contract to the secretary. The secretary understood, and immediately opened the entire contract, along with the attached confidentiality agreements and professional commitments. Mr. Song, we have signed a 5-year contract. According to the agreement, if you unilaterally terminate the cooperation without a valid reason, you will have to compensate our company 10 times the contract value. The breach of contract fee you need to pay is 8 million. For the current Song Jingnian, This amount was astronomical. Even if he sold himself, it wouldn't be enough to cover the compensation. It was only then that he finally understood. It wasn't a gift from heaven, but a lamb walking into a tiger's den. The job-seeking program Let's Find a Job Together, co-produced by the Betchy Group and Yumi Media Company, caused a heated debate online as soon as it was announced. The reason was none other than the CEO of the Betchy Group participating in the entire process, authentically showcasing the whole procedure. Thanks to my immense popularity, resumes flew into her department like snowflakes. Wen Shuizhou and Jian Wanting were among them. The two carefully selected suitable positions and sent their well-prepared resumes. Soon, they received notifications that they had passed the preliminary screening and could participate in the next round of interviews. The two were overjoyed. They took on several part-time jobs and rented 2 formal suits to prepare for the upcoming live interview. The interview day was on a weekend. The front of the Betchy Group was packed with people. More than a dozen live broadcast rooms were opened simultaneously, and hundreds of millions of viewers flocked to watch this grand job-seeking program. The main broadcast room, with me present, undoubtedly had the highest number of viewers. In one morning, I interviewed 5 candidates. My sharp thinking and excellent vision earned constant praise in the comments. Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou's interviews were scheduled for the last 2 slots of the morning, at 11:30. They received the notice and followed the staff to the main broadcast room. Seeing me still in an interview, their eyes were filled with tenderness. When the interview inside ended, they were about to enter when the staff stopped them. Sorry, the interview room originally planned for you two is not finished yet, so you have been temporarily moved to the main broadcast room. The main interviewer will be here shortly. Please wait a moment. Isn't the main interviewer you? Both of them were stunned. I finished the last interview, politely said goodbye to the fans in the broadcast room, and pushed the door open to leave. As I passed by Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou, facing their disappointed gazes, I didn't even glance at them, not even bothering to sweep my eyes over them before leaving. The two of them stared at my departing back until I completely disappeared. I didn't look back once. They were immersed in a sad atmosphere and didn't notice that the main interviewer had already arrived and taken a seat. The staff member holding the roster began to call out names. Jian Wanting, Wen Shuizhou, your interview is about to begin. Please enter the meeting room immediately. Although I had left, the fans' enthusiasm did not diminish. They were still active in the main broadcast room. As soon as Jian Wanting appeared, fans started spamming the comments. Who is this? Why does she look so familiar? I think she looks familiar too. Not bad looking. Is she an internet celebrity trying to gain fame? Jian Wanting couldn't see these comments. Still thinking about my cold attitude when I left, her attention was somewhat scattered. The main interviewer flipped through her resume and saw that she was applying for the position of product manager. He then asked a series of targeted questions. In your resume, you state that you have relevant work experience. Can you tell us the position and job content of your previous job? 2 years as a general manager. Jian Wanting heard the question and blurted out instinctively, I was previously the CEO of the Betchy Group. This sentence immediately stunned everyone in the meeting room and all the comments. CEO of the Betchy Group. Isn't that Mr. Jian's position? Very quickly, Jian Wanting realized she had misspoken. Under the astonished gazes of the interviewers, she became flustered and hurriedly explained incoherently, no, I was in charge of the decision-making department. The decision-making department. What specific position? Faced with the interviewer's follow-up question, Jian Wanting was at a loss for how to answer. Meanwhile, seeing this absurd scene, the comments section had already burst into laughter. Oh my god, what kind of life does this sister live? She must have drunk fake wine. So funny. So the Betchy Group. There should be a limit to lying. Do you want to check which corporation you are interviewing at? This sister will definitely become famous. She's really here to gain fame. Is this internet celebrity trying to become famous by creating controversy? After the chaotic second round of interviews, Jian Wanting unsurprisingly failed. She walked out of the room with a dejected face. Wen Shuizhou saw her poor expression and wanted to ask what was wrong, but the staff had already called her name. She could only temporarily put aside her questions and walk into the meeting room. Compared to the distracted Jian Wanting, her attitude was calmer and more serious, leaving a good impression on the interviewers. Wen Shuizhou, I see you're applying for the position of data analyst. In your resume, you mentioned that you have won related awards. Can you elaborate on the specific awards? In front of the interviewers and the waiting comments, Wen Shuizhou said without thinking, very naturally, a few words, the Nobel Prize in Mathematics. For a moment, the entire meeting room was dead silent. The comments were also flooded with a series of question marks. Nobel Prize in Mathematics. Are you and the sister before you here to create an effect for the show? What an amazing show effect. A contestant with abstract talent. I watched the whole process. Seeing the excited comments, I knew that these 2 live interviews would quickly go viral online. Only I knew that they were both telling the truth. Jian Wanting was indeed the CEO of the Betchy Group in another dimension. and the Nobel Prize in Mathematics that Wen Shujiao had won also existed. But all their glory and fame were created by my own hands. Now, I was only taking back the assets and wisdom that I had given them. The source code of the Becchi group and the Nobel Prize from the previous world had been modified and transferred to this world, becoming things in my possession. As for them, they were clearly still immersed in the beautiful dream of being admired by thousands, not yet awakened. They were unwilling to accept returning to a real life of having nothing. With these two statements that made people laugh, no matter what strange things they said later, netizens would not believe them. And this was my true purpose in organizing this program. As expected, Jian Wanning and Wen Shujiao were both eliminated in the second round of interviews, while contributing 200 to the popularity of the Let's Find a Job Together program. Having experienced brilliant glory, how could they be willing to become the laughingstock of the entire network in one move? Even more unwilling was making such a big fool of themselves in front of me, so they couldn't accept this result and blocked me again, wanting to explain clearly. I had no time or mood to listen to their useless words and directly let the assistant handle it. The assistant only saw them as job-seeking failures and immediately gave a solution. Ladies, you did not pass the second round of interviews. Unfortunately, you cannot work with Mr. Jiang. Considering the popularity you have contributed to the program, our company can consider providing you with another opportunity. However, all of our company's recruitment positions have ended. Currently, only the positions of janitor and security guard are still vacant. Would you like to consider them? Hearing the two positions of janitor and security guard, Jian Wanning and Wen Shujiao's faces immediately turned black. The assistant looked at their expressions and knew they wouldn't agree, so she didn't say any more. If you two are unwilling, then I'm sorry. Please follow our company's official website and wait for the next recruitment period to open. When is the next time? Neither of them knew, and whether they could successfully apply was also uncertain. The pressure of real life and the strong desire to be by my side gradually broke down Jian Wanning and Wen Shujiao's unwillingness. After an intense mental struggle, Wen Shujiao reluctantly said, I want to try the security position. Seeing her give in, Jian Wanning gritted her teeth and also agreed to join the security team. The assistant took out her phone, looked it up for a moment, and then gave her a regretful smile. Sorry, the security position is already full. You can consider the janitor position. Currently, our company only has this vacancy left. Jian Wanning was originally unwilling to change, but hearing that this was the only position left, she hurriedly agreed. Then, a janitor it is. The assistant brought the final recruitment results of this spring recruitment. I flipped from the first page to the last. Seeing Wen Shujiao and Jian Wanning in security and janitor uniforms, I couldn't help but laugh. Occupations are not divided into high and low, but those two had always been proud and conceited. I thought they wouldn't agree. After being surprised, I gradually forgot about this matter and entered a working state. During a break, the secretary brought the designs that Song Jingnian had submitted over the past period. I glanced at them, and my eyebrows immediately furrowed. What is this? It wasn't that I was deliberately making things difficult for Song Jingnian, but in my eyes, these designs were really not up to standard. They weren't even as good as the graduation projects of ordinary students. So, I wasn't satisfied with any of them, and returned them all to be redone. The assistant conveyed this result to Song Jingnian, and he completely collapsed. These designs were the result of half a month of staying up late and racking his brains, but the result was such a low evaluation. He had reason to suspect that I was deliberately trying to torture him. He immediately got angry with the secretary. How can none of them pass? Does he have a problem with me? The secretary saw that he still refused to admit his problem and didn't want to waste any more time. She directly led him to the design department, and handed all the designs to the experts. The director of the Becchi Group's design department was famous for his harsh eyes and sharp tongue. Right in front of Song Jingnian, he criticized his designs as worthless. Song Jingnian had never been so humiliated. He was so angry he was about to explode, but because the other side had many people, he didn't dare to vent and could only suppress it. The secretary looked at his red eyes and lips that were about to be bitten to the point of bleeding, returned the designs to his hands, and kindly reminded him, Mr. Song, according to the contract, you need to complete 10 qualified designs this month. Otherwise, you can only receive a basic salary of 4,000. There are 5 days left until the deadline. Please try your best. At the Becchi Group, both security guards and janitors had to undergo rigorous training before starting their jobs. In the past 2 years, Jian Wanning and Wen Shujiao had gotten used to the life of the upper class, so in the initial training stage, faced with strict regulations, they both showed strong maladjustment. The security captain and the cleaning team leader, without exception, applied corresponding punishments for their violations of regulations. During their probationary period, their salary of 4,500 was almost all deducted, leaving only 3,000 in the end. With this money, they rented a small, shabby room, and finally had a place to stay instead of sleeping on the streets. After paying the rent, the remaining 3,000, if saved a little, was barely enough for food and clothing. Returning to the poorest and most miserable period once again, Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou felt extremely disappointed. But as long as they went to the company during their shifts and could see me, those painful emotions would be greatly reduced. Relying on this little comfort, the two of them passed their probationary period, became official employees, and gradually accepted reality. When Shuizhou was on duty at the main gate, her working hours from 800 am to 400 bim. But she often arrived half an hour early every day because sometimes when I was busy, I would come to the company earlier. She didn't want to miss any opportunity to see me. As for Jian Wanting, she was responsible for cleaning the entire building. Her working hours were from 200 bim to 1000 bim. She often left work an hour late every day because I often worked late into the night. She was worried that something would happen to me if it was too late, and also wanted to protect me a little more. I was completely unaware of all this. I had even almost forgotten that they worked in my company. I was always busy handling new projects. Because it involved the gaming industry, which I was not familiar with, these days I often worked alone late into the night. I drank a lot of coffee during the day, so I was even more awake at night. When I felt tired and realized it was time to leave work, it was already 100 am. I never forced my employees, the assistant and secretary both left on time. The whole building was left with only the light from my office. I turned off the light, and walked alone through the long corridor. I was about to contact the night shift driver when I saw a familiar figure at the elevator entrance. It was Jian Wanting. She had changed out of her janitor uniform and seemed to have just finished her shift. As soon as she saw me, she immediately put away her disappointed expression and tried to force an unnatural smile. "Mr. Jian, just getting off work now." Faced with her deliberate greeting, I still had no expression. My reaction was very cold. Ease. The smile on Jian Wanting's face stiffened, but she didn't want to miss this rare opportunity and continued to find topics to talk about. "I just got off work too. Shall we go home together?" I pressed the elevator button and politely refused Jian Wanting. She felt disappointed, and the smile on her face could barely be maintained. The two of them entered the elevator one after another without saying anything. The atmosphere froze. Outside, it was pouring rain. Looking at the incessant rain, I was about to contact the butler to have the driver pick me up when a car suddenly stopped at the entrance. The car window rolled down, revealing Wen Shuizhou's face. "It's raining, you can't get a car now. I'm here to pick you up. Ao Chen, let's take you home together." I was about to refuse, but after several calls to the butler and the driver went unanswered, I had to reluctantly agree. Seeing me nod, both of them were overjoyed, vying to help me open the car door. I ignored them, opened the front passenger door myself and got in. The driver, who knew how to read faces, understood at a glance that the richest person in the car was the one next to him. He quickly and attentively asked for the destination. Dongjianville area. On the way, Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou tried to find many topics to talk about, but I didn't respond once. I closed my eyes and listened to the gentle sound of the rain falling on the window. My tense nerves from the whole day finally relaxed. The two people in the back seat were quiet for a while. When the taxi stopped at the villa area, I quickly paid the fare, opened the door, and was about to get out. Wen Shuizhou in the back seat saw this and hurriedly chased after me, opening an umbrella over my head. "Don't get wet, or you'll catch a cold." For the first time since meeting again, the two of them were so close. Hearing that gentle voice, looking at those eyes full of concern and heart touch, for a moment, I thought I had returned to 5 years ago. At that time, Wen Shuizhou was cold to everything, only showing such a gentle gaze to me. And Jian Wanting, with her hot temper and rebellious nature, listened to no one but me. At that time, Song Jingnian had not yet appeared. We were still the solid triangle relationship of childhood sweethearts, with a past of overcoming storms together and a future of unknown names. At that time, I would worry about not having enough accumulation points and would be sad that one day I would have to part with them. Through these eyes, I recalled the past in Meng City. But the cold raindrops falling on my ankles reminded me that all of that was in the past. I moved my gaze away, looking towards the distance where the butler was running over with an umbrella. He said in a calm and natural tone, "Thank you. The taxi fare back to the city tonight can be reimbursed by the company." After speaking, I stepped out from under the large umbrella that could shelter from the rain without hesitation. The rain had just fallen on my shoulders and had not yet soaked my clothes when it was blocked by another umbrella. I was never the little boy who needed their protection. From the very beginning, I was the one sent by the system to save them. Now that the mission was over, my umbrella would not tilt at all, only stand straight above my head, sheltering me from the wind and rain. I didn't wake up until noon the next day. He stretched and walked out of the bedroom. The secretary was already waiting outside the door and came forward to report on the next week's schedule. After breakfast, the report was just finished. I was about to go out to enjoy the sun when I saw the secretary looking troubled. "What else is there?" "It's Song Jingnian. In recent months, all his designs have been rejected by the design director. He has started to give up on himself. At first, I thought Song Jingnian was just all talk and no substance, unable to produce works worthy of a gold medal. But looking at the current situation, it seemed he had no talent at all. He couldn't even design the most basic and simple works. I deeply suspected whether an outstanding student from the design department of university would have such a level. He also said he wants to see you, saying that many things before were a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding. Looking at the scar on my hand from the chandelier, I raised my eyebrows and smiled faintly. I originally didn't want to see Song Jingnian, but hearing this sentence, I really wanted to meet him. An hour later, Song Jingnian was brought to the villa by the assistant. Having not seen him for a few months, perhaps due to poor nutrition, he was as thin as a skeleton, his face pale with dark circles under his eyes bloodshot. Seeing his miserable state, I suddenly remembered when he first came to the studio for an interview. He was just as pitiful. At that time, I softened and listened to Song Jingnian cry about his poor family background, so I made an exception and gave him an internship opportunity. At first, Song Jingnian clung to me all day, calling me brother. After wanting to latch onto the two tall trees, Jian Wanning and Wen Shuizhou, he revealed his true nature, deliberately driving a wedge between the three of us. It was a pity that he had misjudged the person and latched onto the wrong thigh. He had only enjoyed a few days of a rich life before it vanished like smoke. Thinking about his ups and downs, I felt both pity and amusement. But I didn't show any expression, only said coldly, I heard you wanted to see me. What is it? Since getting out of the car, Song Jingnian's eyes had not closed once. Along the way, he looked at the elegant garden, the magnificent villa, and the exquisite and expensive decorations. He was so hateful that his eyes seemed to be on fire. He gritted his teeth. Why? Why could he always enjoy such a happy life? While he had to live in a dark rental room, drawing designs day and night, doing dirty work, and carrying a huge amount of compensation. The extremely dark emotions flowed like poison in Song Jingnian's body, almost swallowing his entire rationality. But he knew the principle of having to bow his head under someone else's roof, so he still tried to suppress the surging emotions in his heart, forcing a friendly smile. Brother Hao Chen, long time no see. Actually, I came today to apologize to you. I was ignorant before. Hearing the word apologize, I couldn't help but remember his appearance of tattling and slandering before. I didn't believe at all that Song Jingnian would sincerely repent and apologize, nor did I intend to give him this opportunity. No need. Because I never considered you anything. One sentence pierced Song Jingnian's fragile self-esteem. He clenched his fists, his sharp nails digging into his palms, scratching out wounds. The painful emotions that had tormented him day and night surged up again. He could no longer restrain himself, letting the venomous emotions pour out from the bottom of his eyes, roaring, I'm just a poor person who has to borrow money for tuition, not worthy of being promoted. But what are you so proud of? You're just someone who crawled out of the slums. You have today because of Jian Wanning and Wen Shuizhou. What's so noble about you? On what basis do you show off in front of me? You stole their lives. You will definitely be punished. Hearing the word stole, a faint smile appeared on the corner of my mouth. I slowly stood up, coldly looking at the small, thin person in front of me. Everything I have today, whether it's the wealth, status, or fame that you are jealous of, was all earned by myself. It has nothing to do with Jian Wanning and Wen Shuizhou. To be precise, everything they once had was given by me. Because they were not grateful, I took it all back. Your poor background is not your fault. All the suffering you have to endure has nothing to do with me. It's simply because you are too greedy. For the sake of immediate benefits, you resorted to unscrupulous means, which is why you are in this situation today. The one being punished is not me, but you. For 3 consecutive months, Song Jingnian did not submit a single design as required by the contract. Therefore, according to the cooperation agreement, his contract with me was terminated. At the same time, he had to pay 8 million in compensation. On the way back, when he learned of this, Song Jingnian's already fragile psychological barrier completely collapsed. When he got this job, he thought heaven had not cut off all paths for him and had given him a bright road. Who knew that what awaited him was a cage deliberately prepared to imprison the second half of his life? Looking at his own signature on the contract, he couldn't help but remember the last words I said to him before he left the villa. In the design competition, Jian Wanning and Wen Shuizhou paid for the mistakes you made. But unfortunately, they can't even take care of themselves now. I'm afraid they don't have the energy to help you solve this compensation. You're an adult. Didn't you think when you signed the contract that with your ability, you couldn't handle such a large order? When I said these words, the corner of my eyes, the faint smile on my lips, made Song Jingnian even more resentful than the number in front of him. He went crazy, tearing the thick contract to shreds. Because he was too agitated, his whole face was red, and the blue veins on his forehead throbbed. 8 million. A day and a night passed. He didn't rest for a second. Countless zeros repeated in his head, making it impossible for him to calm down. If he carried this debt of 8 million, he would be trampled under my feet for the rest of his life. Thinking of this, Song Jingnian was completely desperate, even having the idea of logging himself out. But what was the use of him logging out? I was still a rich young master, still enjoying a prosperous life, being pampered by everyone. Why should he die silently while I lived carefree? The one who should die is you. As soon as this thought appeared, it took root in Song Jingnian's mind. He couldn't control himself and laughed out loud, his eyes revealing a mad and gloomy look. It seemed he could already see my desperate and disbelieving face when I died. This summer solstice was the 3rd anniversary of the establishment of the Bachi group. To celebrate, the group held a grand ceremony on the headquarters campus. In the middle of the ceremony, I drank too much wine and felt a little dizzy, so I slipped out to get some fresh air. The summer night breeze carried a wave of heat, blowing my hair and obscuring my vision. I squinted and adjusted my hair. Suddenly, I heard someone call my name from behind. I turned around and saw Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou running towards me, the smiles on their faces exactly the same as when they were 17. It was a pity that I was no longer the 17-year-old boy. I wasn't drunk enough to be muddled. I knew this clearly, so I returned to my usual cold expression, like looking at a stranger. When I coldly looked up again, I saw that Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou both had horrified expressions. I followed their gaze and turned my head, seeing a car speeding towards me, only 10 meters away. Too much alcohol made my thoughts slow. By the time I realized the driver was Song Jingnian, and he seemed to want revenge on me, the car had already rushed in front of me. Just when I thought I was about to have a third car accident, a strong push sent me far away. I fell into a flower bed. Apart from a few minor injuries on my hands and feet, I was fine. Song Jingnian was blocked at a corner by several police cars chasing behind him and was handcuffed. And Jian Wanting and Wen Shuizhou were hit by the car and flew far away, lying in a pool of blood. This tragic scene was exactly the same as the car accident that almost took my life 2 years ago. Bright red blood flowed from their bodies, soaking into the dark asphalt road. From a distance, it looked like countless rivers that had stopped flowing and would never flow again. Now, whenever I look back at the past, I no longer feel regret or remorse. Instead, I am grateful for the challenges that helped me realize the true value of life. Money and power are fleeting, but love, friendship, and family are the eternal things worth cherishing and preserving for a lifetime. And perhaps this is the true meaning of the saying, true wealth is not about possessing much, but about knowing what is enough and cherishing what you have. Google Search Suggestions. Display of search suggestions is required when using grounding with Google Search.